Greetings, welcome to Baba Nyame. I'm your guide and host, Kwesi Kunadu. On this episode, we're going to talk about a journey, why human beings have a journey, and what it all amounts to. Now, I'm going to approach this matter of our journey through a conversation that I had recently. And the conversation was with the Almighty, yes, God Himself. And this may sound normal to you who don't know me and have only encountered me through YouTube or videos or books of mine that you have read. But to those that know me will know this. They'll know that I've had not the most clearest relationship with the Almighty. And I'm going to explain to you by sharing with you how this all happened, how it all went down. So it went something like this. I was taking a nap, easing back in my office chair, working on a computer. I fell asleep, and then I woke up from the nap. So I wasn't dreaming. This is very important to what I'm about to tell you. Not dreaming, I woke up. And when I woke up, there was a figure there. And that figure was the Almighty Himself. Now, I say Him and He, not because of the English language per se. Yes, that's a part of it, the pronouns. But because the voice was like that of a father, and the feeling was like that of a father. And so, there's a maleness, to the expression. Of course, you, if you're a woman, you may have the same experience, but with a feminine voice. One thing is true, whether feminine or masculine in the voice of God is always calm, and it's always cool, and it is comforting. It's never harsh or rash, and that's how you know the difference between that great spirit and, of course, other spiritual forces and figures. Nonetheless, so the figure is there, and looks at me and told me that my soul is weary. And I said, yes. Then it said to me that, you've been through a lot. I said, yes, I have been, in these years on this earth. And of course, it's already telling me things that it already knows and I already know. But that's more so a prelude. What it then begins to say to me is this. It says to me that a number of things, but some critical things that are important to me and hopefully relevant to you on your own human journey. What he says to me is that whatever he has allowed me to get into in terms of situation or circumstance, it is for me to learn a lesson that I'm to take as a lesson to grow, to evolve, to move from whatever stage that I was before that experience. And then he says, just before I go off the cliff or out of bounds or whatever the analogy or metaphor may be, he would remove me from it. And what he shared with me was this. In doing so, the key is that the journey is supposed to be instructive. Because as some of you might recall from our previous episodes and previous videos, that when we go home, that is the spiritual home, not the home that you live in now, whether it's a house, apartment, or otherwise, but when you go home, that when your spirit goes home, your soul goes home, it has to account for every thought, action, or deed that has been accomplished or has been manifest while you were a human being. And there's a record of everything. Everything there's a record of. And so you'll be questioned and you have to account for. And one of the most important questions, some of you who have seen those videos might recall, what have you learned? And so when the Almighty asked me, or Betty has said to me that he puts me or allows me, because it's my will, my desire, my decision, to get in certain situations, some that I ought to be in, some that I not ought to be in. And he allows me to stay there, to sit there for a number of reasons. But ultimately, it's about what do you learn from it that is consonant, that is resonant with why you were sent here in the first place, your purpose, your destiny. And if it is going sideways or going in a direction that does not serve your purpose, just before it appears that you are what? Just about to fall off the deep end or off the cliff. Take me out. Make a way out. Right? And sometimes, or several occasions, right, I don't listen to the first taking out. Right? Then I'm still in it, and it gets a little bit deeper, a little more murky. And That's clearly on me. But then there are other opportunities where he'll show me that this is something I need not to be a part of, right? And of course, even in not listening, there's a lesson there, right? And further, he tells me this. He says that, I love you, and I've always loved you. And in fact, he says, is that not what a father does? Allows his child or his children to go through what they need to go through, but just before they appear to be destroyed or be terribly harmed in unrecoverable ways, remove them from the situation. And you might say, well, what sense does that make to allow, me to suffer or to go through the agony of that experience, right? It could be for months, it could be for years, decades even. Here's why. You see, we all have guides, spiritual guides. We also have people that are on this earth that are in our corner, right? Think of it as our team, right? But we also have enemies, people that want nothing but your utter destruction. And some of those enemies are related to you by blood. They come through the same womb. They are related by marriage, birth, or adoption. And they're also people who are strangers in the sense that you don't know them, but they know you and your purpose. And so given this network of people that are in your corner, that are looking for your downfall, the Almighty will allow those looking for your downfall to, like he's done for me, to appear that, yes, he's about to be destroyed. And as they are exposing themselves for who they really are, because they're waiting for that downfall to occur any moment now. They're salivating, waiting for it. The Almighty would just shift me away, move me out of that bullet, move me out of that particular situation. For those who, in fact, have no heart or love for me, to expose themselves as such. And for me to see that for myself. That's the lesson. That's the blessing. And as I've made mention before, and I've made the argument to you that God the Almighty does not engineer or orchestrate or essentially looks forward to the proliferation of wickedness, evil, etc. They're part of the natural world, natural order. Yes, it is created ultimately by the Creator, but we are His creations and we don't always do good. So imagine other forces and figures who are created by that same creative force who don't always do good, right? That's not on God. That's on the creation and on those things and entities that are created. So back to my conversation. In this chat, he also tells me that he knows I've been waiting for years to hear that I love him, right? From my earthly father, biological father, which I have not gotten that from him, right? In all my years. And I've been really yearning for that. In fact, I spent 30 years trying to get that from this earthly father. Hasn't happened. It's only recently that I came to terms with that and let it go. And then I saw my blessing. So then the Almighty said to me, you are free. He said, you're free. Now, to you all, this is what that means. I know what that means. It means two things. It means that the negative force or spirit, or you might say demon that I've created, we all create them through our own bitterness, pain, and anger. And sometimes they become they outsize us. That is the negative force itself. And it acts as our shadow. It follows us everywhere we go, and it impinges upon our blessing, it impinges upon our greatness. It sabotages our opportunities, right? And those shackles, he said, you're free, right? And I felt it. It was heartfelt. But what also meant that, as he told me, he said, most humans are bounded and shackled and they don't realize it. Just because they can't see a change in their arms and their necks and their feet, they are shackled and bounded. They're bounded to their own addictions. Addictions to the very things that create the demon or negative spirit that is overshadowing them, and that is orchestrating all the ill and sickness and disease and lack of prosperity and blessing in their lives, right? They're shackled, they're bounded, but they can't see the change, right? And so he also said this to me. He gave me my number, right? For the first time. What do I mean by that? Each of us have a number on the bottom of our left foot. You can't see it, so you can check right now, but you won't be able to see it, right? That number, right, matches your name, your birth name. Some of us might think a lot about our names, and that's for a different time, perhaps, a different discussion. But whatever you think about the names, right? Each of us is given a name not solely because we have an earthly name, doesn't mean that's our name, right? Each of us has a name before we come, and that name, rides with us. And the earthly name, in some ways, correspond to that other name that we have. And so each of us has a name and a number. And when it's our time to be called to go back home or potentially go back home, that number will be called out. And we have no control or, ability to stop that, right? And my number is a 5-digit number. No, I won't tell you the number. That's for me to hold on to. But mine is a 5-digit number. He told me my number, right? And of course, my number won't be called anytime soon, according to him, right? But I will have my time when it's time for me to go home, but not now, right? And so he revealed that to me and told me that, speaking of home, that I will be going home, right? And I'm going to make sure that I continue to do the things that I came here to do now that I'm free, now that I am homebound, and now that I have the love, from the Almighty, the ultimate Father, right? Again, that's the voice I hear, and so it's like a father to me, and that's what I refer to as such, right? It may be different for you, and that's all fine and good. And so these points in our conversation to me was truly, moving, because in fact, when he told me that he loved me, right, it hit me hard. In fact, I started to boo-hoo. I mean, tears were coming down my chin and cheek. I put my head down for a moment, and I just felt it just gushing out. Almost like a faucet turned on full. It just came streaming down. I didn't stop it or want to stop it. And as the tears ran down, I just felt it. I just felt it deep inside my soul, right? Deep inside my soul. And I knew it was authentic. I knew it was real. And as I told, God, I said, I've been waiting for that, since I was 19 years old to hear that. And here's the mistake that I made, but led to a lesson, right? So that was part of my destiny to make that mistake. You see, I had a yearning when I was in undergrad at 19 years old, a deep yearning. I couldn't figure out why, but I wanted to reconnect with my father. My mistake that I made was to try to reconnect with my earthly biological father. That's another time, another story, but that wasn't the father who was connected to it. It was the other father, the celestial one, right? The cosmic one. And why, you might ask, at that moment in time? Because timing is everything. Everything has a season. Everything has a time for it to happen. It's because me going away to college was not the thing to do. And God told me, he said, look, I allowed you to go to college, right? Because it's what I wanted to do. But see, going to college took me away from, not off my path, because you reassured me that I was never off my path. I was simply misled or misguided. And so part of that misguiding was during college. In college, I began to what? Talk within myself, pray, engage, with God the way that I used to do when I was younger. You see, I'll back up for a moment. You see, when I was a little boy, I was very, very powerful. Very powerful. So powerful, I'll give you a few examples, right? My family and I were impoverished. I mean, we didn't have material things, we didn't have money, but we had a lot of love and a lot of fun, a lot of laughter, right? There were days when we didn't have enough to drink. We used to drink sugar and water, and sometimes there was no sugar to make sugar and water. Sometimes there was no water. But I always had my grandfather, I always had my mom, I always had my brother with me. So, because we had family in the elongated sense, right? In the real sense, I didn't know I was poor until I moved to the United States, right? That's to tell you how much, money didn't really matter, though I knew I didn't have it. So often I didn't have money and I was thirsty or hungry, and I used to just visualize it. I used to visualize, finding money or having money. And then I would look down on the ground and I would see money, right? That's how powerful I was when I was a young boy, right? And this wasn't like once or twice. This happened many times where I would really, really need something, not want. I would need something. And out of that need, I would just visualize it. And if I could see it, it would just happen, right? As I grew older, one of the missteps happens that I left my homeland of Jamaica too young, right? Because I was being reared by my grandfather, who was also a spiritualist, who passed away. And you've heard me talk about my grandfather many times, so you know how much he means to me in my heart, my soul. And so leaving him, not leaving Jamaica, but leaving him was a mistake, right? on my mom's part. She's apologized, of course. She's my mom, and I accept her wholeheartedly for that. But that was the first mistake. The second one was going off to college and being misguided by people who were telling me things that I was open to, right? Never fully convinced, but still enough to neglect the very organic relationship that I had with the Almighty, with my celestial Father, right? And so going to college, right, and learning about, the ways of white folks and other folks in the world, including, my own, was not, on the itinerary for me in terms of timing, right? And so it took me away in terms of being misguided from the very things, the very organic ways of being that I was as a younger boy. I mean, 9, 10, 11, 12 years old, I was very, very powerful. Things, dreams, waking state, it doesn't matter. If I visualize it, it would happen, right? And so, that gift, right, that ability began to decline the more I began to listen to and be a part of, these folks, that were talking about this and that. And I was, intrigued, so I was interested. I never joined any cult, never joined any organization. Well, actually, I did. I joined an African fraternity, which I left and then later left because I realized that wasn't for me. And then perhaps that was, part of the misguidedness. It took me away from the growing out into the person I was when I was 12 years old, 11 years old, 10 years old, right? And so that moment, right, in my 40s, when I'm having this chat, with the Almighty, reminded me that He let me go to college because I wanted to go there, but that wasn't necessarily on the itinerary because of what happened in college, right? And it reminds me a lot of the stories I've read, as an historian, about Africans when they go away to college or go away to school, right? And they become something else. That is, they leave the values and principles of their village and they become cosmopolitan, I guess. And, they become essentially, misguided. They lose their heads, lose their sanity, their cultural sanity, if they will. And maybe a part of that happened to me. In fact, it did happen to me, right? So this is a warning, for you all. Now, nothing's wrong with going to college. But what I'm suggesting here, right, what I'm poking at from my experience is that engaging in other forms of ideas and knowledge exchange can sometimes leave you a bit off course or delay your development because that was not in your path as something that is outside of you. But what is inside of you is already baked in and is just a matter of just unfolding, right? And so my unfolding, was sort of, delayed, interrupted by me going to college. And of course, I tripled down, master's degree, PhD, and of course, it has its positive and negative, right? And so in coming back full circle, that chat with the Almighty was deeply important. In fact, what I shared with you far was only less than half of what we talked about in doing this conversation, right? And in the end, He reminded me that, He lives in my soul, lives in my heart. So He's always there, right? The Creator is always there, right? Look no further. And He gave me some advice and some things to do, to bring me back full circle to, who I am and who I was and what I am. And what I'm growing into, which has always been there, right? And He told me, reminded me that I've never lost my path, never lost my way, just been misguided. And so it's good to be back home in terms of being myself, but it's also great to know that, my path to go home is there. It's just me to mess it up. Of course, I won't do that, but that's what's in front of me. And so our journeys, right, our human journeys are not much dissimilar, even though we have our own way to go. That is, we can walk the same road or on the same path, but we have to make our own footsteps. And my footsteps, are already been paved. And so my job is now to keep walking that walk and ensure that what has been shared with me maintains that way. In fact, it becomes better. And so in the second half or third act, in this human journey, I'm looking forward to that. For Baba Nyame, I've been your guide and host. Please put your comments, questions, experiences section below. Until next time, stay well.